Have you ever heard of a country called Yugoslavia? Depending on how old you are, you might remember it from the news, maybe even from the Olympics. But for a whole lot of people, it's a name that just doesn't exist on any modern map. So the big question is, where on earth did it go?
All right, let's get into it because this is a truly wild story. I mean, how does a pretty major European country, one known for its incredible sports teams and this larger-than-life leader, just vanish? Poof! Gone from the map. That's the puzzle we're going to piece together. So to figure out where it went, you got to go all the way back to the beginning to understand what it even was. See, Yugoslavia wasn't some ancient kingdom. No, it was basically bolted together from the scraps of empires that crumbled after World War I.
On December 1st, 1918, this new nation was born. And get this for a name, the Kingdom of the Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. And right there, in that super long name, you've got a huge clue that this wasn't one people. It was a bunch of different groups, all shoved under one roof for the very first time.
And these weren't just small differences, These were deep, fundamental fault lines. You had different religions, Orthodox Christians versus Catholic Christians, different alphabets, Cyrillic versus Latin, and completely different ideas about how to run a country. The Serbs, who were the biggest group, they wanted a powerful central government. But the Croats and Slovenes, they wanted a much looser setup, a federation, so they could keep their own identities. This was a recipe for conflict from day one.
So yeah, it didn't take long for things to get ugly. After a ton of political drama, including a shocking assassination right inside the parliament building, King Alexander I had enough. He basically staged a coup, banned all the political parties, and declared himself a dictator. And that's when he officially changed the name to Yugoslavia, which literally means Land of the South Slavs. He was trying to force unity where it didn't really exist.
But the one person who would really come to define this country, the man who would hold it all together for more than 30 years, was about to make his entrance. His name was Josip Broz Tito, and his time in charge would be remembered, for better or worse, as Yugoslavia's golden age.
After World War II, Tito emerged as this massive national hero for leading the fight against the Nazis. He then set up a communist government, and his whole philosophy, his mantra, was brotherhood and unity. He cracked down hard on all the old ethnic rivalries. The message was simple and non-negotiable. Forget that you're a Serb or a Croat. We are all Yugoslavs now.
But here's what made Tito's Yugoslavia so fascinating. This was not the Soviet Union's brand of communism. Oh no. Tito famously stood up to Stalin in 1948 and refused to be a Soviet puppet. So while the rest of Eastern Europe was stuck behind the Iron Curtain, Yugoslavia was different. It was non-aligned, its borders were pretty open, and it walked its own path. That gave it this incredible reputation around the world.
And this wasn't just for show. In 1955, when the Soviets were forcing their allies into the Warsaw Pact military alliance, Tito made this incredible move. Yugoslavia became the very first and only communist country in Eastern Europe to say, no thanks. That single move, man, it made him a legend on the world stage, a leader who answered to absolutely no one.
Now, to really sell that Yugoslav identity at home, Tito poured money and resources into sports. And it was brilliant, really, because when you see players from Serbia, Croatia, and Bosnia all wearing the same blue jersey and winning, that creates a powerful feeling of unity. Their soccer team was so good, so creative, they were nicknamed the Brazil of Europe. Their basketball team was world-class. For a while, it really seemed to work.
But even with Tito's iron grip, those deep cracks in the foundation of Yugoslavia, they never went away. They were just covered up. And by the 1960s and 70s, you could start to see them splintering through the surface again.
See, underneath all that international fame and sporting success, the economy was starting to sputter. Growth was flat, jobs were scarce, prices were going up. And the biggest issue was this huge economic divide. You had the rich, industrial north, places like Slovenia and Croatia, and the much poorer agricultural south. And a really toxic resentment started to build, with people in the north feeling like they were just bankrolling everyone else.
And then the whole thing just started to fall apart, piece by piece. In '74, Tito tried to ease tensions by giving the different republics more power, which actually weakened his own central control. But the real moment everything changed was 1980. Tito died. The one person strong enough to hold it all together was just gone. After that, the old nationalisms came roaring back. And then the final blow. 1989, the Berlin Wall falls, and the communist ideology that had been a kind of glue for the country just dissolved.
And what came next? Well, it was absolutely tragic. one of the darkest moments in modern European history. The country didn't just break up peacefully, it tore itself apart in a brutal, violent way.
The collapse happened with terrifying speed. In 1991, the two northernmost republics, Slovenia and Croatia, said, "We're out," and declared independence. The army moved in to stop them, and war began. Macedonia managed to slip away without a fight. But in 1992, when Bosnia and Herzegovina declared its own independence, it kicked off the longest and by far the deadliest war of them all.
All those old hatreds that Tito had bottled up for decades, they just exploded. What started as political arguments about territory quickly turned into vicious wars fought along ethnic and religious lines, neighbor against neighbor. It was a horrifying end to the Yugoslav experiment, and it brought a level of bloodshed to Europe that hadn't been seen since the Second World War.
So, after all of that, all the history, the unity, the collapse, and the conflict, what does that part of the world look like now? Well, where there was once one country, today there are 7.
That's right, one nation splintered into 7. You've got Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, North Macedonia, Montenegro, and Kosovo. The last pieces of the puzzle fell into place much more recently, with Montenegro peacefully separating in 2006 and Kosovo declaring its independence in 2008.
When you think about it, Yugoslavia was more than just a place on a map. It was an idea. The idea that these different South Slavic peoples could be stronger together as one. But in the end, that idea just wasn't strong enough to overcome centuries of separate histories, religions, and identities, especially once the strong man holding it all together was gone. It really makes you wonder, can any country truly survive when the idea it was built on fades away?